All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. And one of the things that we've seen a lot of things at minicamp. What we have not seen is we have not seen Nick Bosa. Now we are likely to see Bosa at the mandatory minicamp, and I don't know if he's going to play or if he'll just be there. What a resume he's built. Number 2 overall pick in 2019. He had 9 sacks in 2019. He was the defensive rookie of the year. 2020, his campaign was cut short by that ACL injury. He hurt himself on the turf at MetLife, and then he bounced back. 2021, that was 2020. 2021, he led the Niners with 15 and a half sacks. And then last year, he racked up 18 and a half sacks, and that led the league. And he was named the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. And the Niners bought themselves some time on paying him. They exercised the fifth-year option for Bosa, who's 25, and that ensures that he remains with the team through this season. But the Niners would love to get a long-term deal done with Bosa, and it's interesting. There's no question that that Nick Bosa is a great player. I mean, he was a Defensive Player of the Year. He finished 6th in the league's MVP balloting. The Niners have no choice. They have to pay him. They're going to make him the highest paid defender, most likely in NFL history. And I think there's a very good chance that he's going to average more than $30 million per year on a multi-year deal. So there's no doubt he deserves it. He has been the focal point for the 49ers defense. If you want to stop the Niners, you got to stop Nick Bosa. The motor is unbelievable. He seems like he gets nothing but better and better and better. He's also proven that he can be durable. And I think if you're the 49ers, they're going to give him a huge number. Yeah. And is it going to be historic? No doubt. But when you look at the impact on the cap, it's going to reduce his 2023 cap hit. It's going to be, so whatever he signs for, because they'll be able to stretch that signing bonus across the length of the deal, he's going to have a lower cap figure than he will be if he plays on the 5th-year option. So as soon as the Niners do this deal for Bosa and give him a contract extension, that will actually reduce his salary cap impact in his first year. In future years, you're going to see him make more and more money. He'll be the highest paid defensive player in the game, and that money will go up each and every year. But as far as the first year it's signed, he's going to give the Niners a little cap relief. And it may be interesting to see what they do with that. Well, they, part of the plan, I'm sure, is to roll over as much cap room as possible. And you can do that. And that's so, if you look at the Niners and the way they've structured deals, they've given a lot of guys big money next year. And so, they may want to roll over a big portion of their salary cap this year if they can, roll over as much as possible so that they can, handle next year's cap and have as much talent on the field as possible. But it also is kind of interesting. It's going to create more cap room this year. And will they try to use that cap room to add another edge rusher? I mean, if you look at the 49ers right now, I think you can make a strong argument that they are one really good defensive end away from being maybe the Super Bowl favorite. They're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC right now. But if they can get one more edge rusher, one more guy who can, a Yannick Ngakoue, a Leonard Floyd, a Jason Pierre-Paul, a Melvin Ingram, a Frank Clark, if they could add one more edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa, where they didn't have to lean on Drake Jackson or Austin Bryant or Cleveland Farrell, and they could add one more edge rusher to their team, that could be the difference between them going to the Super Bowl and not. So, Bosa says he loves being a Niner. Back on January 31st, he said, I'd love to be here for sure. He says, this is a great organization. They treat you as good as anyone can. I have amazing relationships here, so hopefully I stay here. Yeah, I'd like to be here. So there's no doubt the 49ers love Nick Bosa, and they love that they've had him this entire time, and they understand that he's got incredible value, and they're going to pay him. and it's going to be record setting. It's going to be huge money. It's going to give them some cap relief in the present. Will they use that cap relief to add players? I hope so, but you never know. It's very possible they roll that cap at those extra cap dollars into next year's salary cap so they can afford a deeper roster next year. But man, what a year Bosa just had. And, there's no question that he's on the verge of becoming the highest paid defender in NFL history. The one thing you can say about Nick is that he's a true technician. You never have to worry about, will he show up in shape? He shows up in the best shape. You never have to worry about, will he do the work to get better? He's driven to get better. Does the guy know everything? Well, I don't know if he's a Renaissance man conversant in every topic there is, but I'll say this. He's a genius football player. And he's got tremendous, he's obviously, when you watch him, he's put in the work. It's a technique-rich position. And this guy's technique is off the charts. It's as good as any young player I've ever seen. Now, you do see defensive ends play a long time. And a lot of times they play a long time because it is such a technique-rich position. And it's hard to, to not get better as a defensive lineman because you get better by doing reps. It's working on your get off. It's about working on your hand placement. It's about making sure your feet and your hands are tied together. It's about, perfecting your counter moves and how, rushing the passer is so much about technique. That's why you see, if you think about the Niners of the 80s, almost every elite pass rusher of the 80s or 90s made a stop in San Francisco. They were always going for veteran edge rushers. Richard Dent was here. Ricky Jackson was here. Chris Dolman was here. Charles Mann was here. Tim Harris, Kevin Green. We could go on and on and on and on. They brought Charles Haley back at the very end. Why? Because these veteran defensive ends, they lose a step or two speed-wise, but they gain the equivalent of a step or two because of their technique, because of how well they use how well they get off the football, and how precise are they with their hand placement, and are their hands and feet tied together? Is it a coordinated effort? And the best pass rushers, they work on their technique and they get better at it, and that's why veteran players oftentimes get a look. That's why you see edge rushers stick around and they seem like they have a longer shelf life. Why? Because they work on their technique and they get better. And suddenly it's not all about first step quickness or what did you bench. Suddenly it's more about your technique and your hand placement and all the little nuances that go into making a great defensive end a great defensive end. So do I expect Nick Bosa to take the field without a contract? No. Do I expect Nick Bosa to be great this year? Absolutely. And the only question I would have is, does he get $30 million or does he get more? Is he going to break the bank and make record-setting money, or is it just going to be incredible money? I think he deserves a record-setting contract. I think the Niners are going to reward him with exactly that. And I expect Nick to play a huge role and to become the dominant player that, I think he has an ability to take all of his physical gifts and then all of his technique and get to a higher level than we've ever seen before. And that's what I expect to see out of Nick Bosa. So, yeah, I think you'll see that contract signed. I think he'll be signed the morning before he goes out for the first training camp practice. I think it's going to be a record-setting deal. And I think the Niners are thrilled with Bosa, and I think he's thrilled with the Niners. The big question I would have is, what are they going to do with the cap relief that new signing provides? Do they roll it into next year, or do they add another edge rusher to help them win this year? I'd love to see him add another edge rusher with that money. But the one thing about Nick Bosa is he is a dominant player, and he's almost for sure to be better each year that goes by. He truly is a freak of nature, and he's an incredible technician. All right, that does it for us in this video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. And thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.